The Great Hall was the largest structure ever built by living beings. It floated in the empty space between 3 galaxies, and inside it, over 1,000 species had gathered to decide the fate of one small world. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood alone on the speaking platform. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Around her, rising up like mountains, were the seats of the Galactic Concord. Each seat held a representative from a different species. Some were made of light. Some were clouds of gas held together by magnetic fields. Some looked like insects or fish or things that had no name in any human language. They had all come here for one reason. They had come to judge humanity. The speaker of the Concord was a being called HFY. It had no body that humans could see. It existed as a pattern of energy that moved through the air like a slow wave. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in the minds of everyone present. The Concord has watched humanity for 40 years, HFY said. We have studied your history. We have observed your behavior. We have given you every chance to change. You have not changed. Elena said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence was sometimes the strongest answer. You are aggressive, HFY continued. Your species spent most of its history fighting itself. Even now, you compete against each other for resources, for status, for things you do not need. You call this economics. We call it madness. In the seats above, many representatives made sounds of agreement. Some stamped their feet. Some flashed colors of approval. The message was clear. They did not like humans. You pursue dangerous knowledge, HFY said. The Concord banned certain technologies long ago. We banned them because they can destroy everything. Artificial minds that can improve themselves. Weapons that can tear holes in space. Machines that can take apart matter and rebuild it into anything. These things are forbidden. Yet your scientists work on them in secret. You cannot help yourselves. Elena wanted to speak. She wanted to say that curiosity was not a crime. She wanted to say that knowledge was never evil, only the use of it. But she stayed silent. She knew her words would change nothing. But worst of all, HFY said, and now its energy pattern pulsed with something like disgust. You refused to let go of death. This was the charge that confused humans the most. The Concord had offered humanity the gift of immortality. They had technology that could stop aging, repair any damage, keep a mind alive forever. Every other species had accepted this gift. Humans had refused. You say that death gives life meaning, HFY said. This is insane. Death is the enemy of all life. It is the darkness that waits at the end of every path. We offered to save you from it. You said no. You chose to keep dying. You chose to keep losing the ones you love. You chose to keep burying your children and your parents and your friends. What kind of species chooses this? Elena finally spoke. Her voice was calm and steady. The kind that remembers why it fights. The hall went silent. 1,000 species stared at the small human woman on the platform. Death teaches us that time is precious, Elena said. It teaches us that we cannot wait forever. It teaches us to love now, to build now, to dream now, because tomorrow is not promised. You gave up death and you gave up urgency. You have lived for millions of years, and in all that time, you have never opened a new door. You have never asked what lies beyond. You are immortal, and you are afraid. HFY's energy pattern flared with anger. You dare to lecture us? You, whose species is barely 1,000,000 years old. You, who still die like animals. Yes, Elena said, because we are not afraid of what comes next. We never have been. The vote happened quickly after that. 1,198 species voted to exile Earth. 49 voted against. The decision was made. Kethvora announced the sentence. A containment barrier would be placed around the Sol system. No ship would enter or leave. No signal would pass through. Humanity would be cut off from the galaxy for 10,000 years. After that, the Concord would review the decision. "Do you have anything to say?" Kethvora asked. Elena looked up at the endless rows of alien faces. She saw fear in many of them. She saw hatred in some. But in a few, hidden in the back rows, she saw something else. She saw curiosity. She saw doubt. She saw beings who were not sure the Concord was right. She would remember those faces. "We understand," she said. "We will need 90 days to recall our citizens from across the galaxy. After that, we will comply with your decision." Kethvora seemed surprised. It had expected anger. It had expected threats. It had prepared for violence. This calm acceptance was something it did not understand. "You accept exile so easily?" it asked. Elena smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. "We accept your decision," she said. "That does not mean we accept exile. It means we accept that you have made your choice. Now we will make ours." She turned and walked off the platform. Her footsteps echoed in the great hall. 1,000 species watched her go, and not one of them understood what they had just done. They thought they had solved the human problem. They thought the barrier would contain whatever humanity might become. They thought 10,000 years of isolation would break the human spirit or teach humans to be like everyone else. They were wrong about everything. On her ship, flying back toward Earth for the last time, Elena Vasquez opened a communication channel. It was encrypted in a way the Concord could not break, using mathematics that human scientists had invented in secret. "The vote passed," she said. "Begin the protocol. On Earth, and on 100 human colonies, and in secret places scattered across the galaxy, people received her message. They were scientists and engineers, teachers and builders, dreamers and planners. They had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. The Concord thought it was punishing humanity. It did not know that humanity had been waiting for this. It did not know that some doors only open when you close all the others first. The barrier would rise in 90 days. And behind that barrier, humanity would finally be free to become what it was always meant to be. The 90 days began, and the galaxy watched humanity leave. Human ships departed from every corner of known space. They left trading stations and research outposts. They left diplomatic missions and mining colonies. They said goodbye to colleagues and friends they had made among the other species. They packed their things and flew home. The Concord observed all of this very carefully. They scanned every ship for hidden weapons. They checked every cargo container for dangerous technology. They monitored every communication for signs of plots or rebellion. They found nothing. This made them nervous. "They are planning something," said Kethvora to the Security Council. "Humans do not surrender. It is not in their nature." "Perhaps the exile has broken their spirit," suggested the representative from the Dominion of Sylph. It was a creature like a floating jellyfish, and it had voted eagerly for humanity's punishment. "No," Kethvora said. "I saw the ambassador's eyes. Her spirit was not broken. She was waiting for something. But the days passed and nothing happened. Human ships kept leaving. Human citizens kept going home. And slowly, the Concord began to relax. Perhaps they had overestimated humanity. Perhaps the strange little species was not so dangerous after all. They were not watching the right things. For 40 years, humans had lived and worked alongside aliens across the galaxy. They had taken jobs that other species considered beneath them. They cleaned space stations. They repaired ships. They served food in restaurants and loaded cargo in ports. They taught languages to alien children and cared for alien elderly. And everywhere they went, they talked. Humans talked to everyone. They asked questions about families and dreams and fears. They remembered names and birthdays. They shared stories and jokes. They listened when others spoke, really listened, in a way that many alien species had forgotten how to do. Most species did not notice this. Talking to servants and workers was not important to them. But some individuals noticed. The lonely ones. The curious ones. The ones who did not fit in with their own kind. Over 40 years, humans had made millions of friends among the forgotten people of the galaxy. Now, in the final 90 days, those friends received quiet invitations. Come with us, the messages said. There's a place for you. There is a home where you will be valued. You do not have to stay with people who ignore you. The Concord never saw these messages. They were sent through networks of personal friendships, passed from hand to hand and mind to mind, never written down in any way that could be traced. It was the oldest form of communication in the universe and the most secure. It was trust. Thousands answered the call. They were scientists whose ideas were considered too strange. They were artists whose work was called dangerous. They were thinkers who asked questions their governments did not want asked. They were the exiles and the outcasts, the dreamers and the rebels. The ones who looked at the Concord and wondered if there was a better way. They slipped away quietly, a few at a time, on human ships that were already leaving. The Concord was counting weapons and scanning for bombs. They were not counting passengers. By the time the barrier rose, over 300,000 aliens had come to Earth. They came from 200 different species. They brought their knowledge and their skills and their hope. And they brought something else that the Concord had forgotten how to feel. They brought hunger. Hunger for change. Hunger for discovery. Hunger for something new. On the last day before the barrier activated, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood on a platform orbiting Earth. Behind her, the planet turned slowly, blue and green and white, beautiful in the light of the sun. Before her, a screen showed the assembly hall of the Concord, where Kathvora and the other leaders waited for her final words. I have a message for the Concord, she said. You have made your decision. You have chosen to lock us away for 10,000 years. We will not fight this. We will not try to break your barrier. Kathvora's energy pattern flickered with satisfaction. Then you accept your punishment. No, Elena said. We accept our independence. You see this as exile. We see it as freedom. For 40 years, we held back. We followed your rules. We pretended to be like you, because we hoped you would accept us. That hope is gone now. She paused. On Earth below, in cities and laboratories and workshops, billions of humans were watching. And beside them, 300,000 aliens who had chosen a new home. Now we will be ourselves, Elena said. We will do the things you were afraid to let us do. We will ask the questions you were afraid to ask. We will open the doors you sealed shut 1,000,000 years ago. And when the barrier falls, we will not be the same species you locked away. Kathvora's pattern shimmered with something like amusement. Bold words. But you are one small system, and we are 1,000 galaxies. What can you possibly become in 10,000 years that would matter to us? Elena smiled. It was the same smile she had worn in the assembly hall. The smile of someone who knew something others did not. We will become the answer to the question you stopped asking, she said. The question that every child asks and every immortal forgets. The question that drives all life forward. And what question is that? Elena looked directly into the screen. Behind her, the barrier began to shimmer into existence. A wall of energy that would seal humanity away from the stars. What happens next? She said. The barrier closed. The screen went dark. And humanity was alone, But they were not afraid. They had work to do. In laboratories on Earth and Mars and the moons of Jupiter, scientists began projects they had hidden for decades. In shipyards orbiting the sun, engineers started building things the Concorde had said were impossible. In schools and universities, human and alien children sat together and learned that limits were only suggestions, that rules were only words, that the universe was not a cage, but a door waiting to be opened. The years passed. The decades passed. The centuries passed. And behind the barrier that was meant to be a prison, humanity began to grow. The Concorde did not know it yet, that they had made the greatest mistake in the history of the galaxy. They had not locked humanity away. They had set humanity free. Free from fear. Free from rules. Free from the need to pretend. In the silence behind the barrier, something wonderful and terrible was being born. And when it was ready, no wall in the universe would be strong enough to contain it. 300 years passed, and the galaxy forgot about Earth. The Concorde had other problems to worry about. Wars broke out between old enemies. Resources grew scarce in some sectors. New species were discovered and brought into the fold. The small system behind the barrier became a footnote in history, a story told to children about what happened to species that refused to follow the rules. Sometimes, sensors near the barrier detected strange readings, energy signatures that did not match any known technology, gravity waves that came from sources that should not exist. Once, an entire observation station simply vanished, leaving no debris, no signal, nothing at all. The Concorde sent investigators. They found nothing. They decided the readings were errors, the missing station a mechanical failure. They wrote reports and filed them away and went back to their normal lives. They did not want to think about what was happening behind the barrier. It was easier to pretend the barrier was doing its job. On the 300th anniversary of the Exile, the barrier vanished. It did not break. It did not fade. It simply stopped existing, as if someone had turned off a light. One moment it was there, a wall of energy stretching across light years of space. The next moment it was gone. Along with the barrier, every probe, every sensor, every monitoring station within 2 light years of Sol disappeared as well. Not destroyed, just gone. The space where they had been was empty and clean, as if they had never existed at all. Panic spread through the Concorde. Emergency sessions were called. Fleets were mobilized. Weapons that had not been used in 100,000 years were brought out of storage and prepared for war. But no attack came. Instead, there was only silence. And then, a single message, broadcast on every frequency in every language known to the Concorde. We are ready now. Come and see. The Concorde sent its fastest ships, 500 vessels, carrying observers from every major species, armed with every weapon, protected by every shield. They traveled to the Sol system expecting to find a threat, expecting to find an enemy. What they found was beyond anything they could have imagined. Sol was no longer one star. It was 11. The original sun still burned at the center, but around it, arranged in a perfect geometric pattern, 10 other stars had been placed. Some were small and red. Some were large and blue. One was a type of star that did not exist in nature. Burning with light that shifted through colors that had no name. The stars were connected. Massive structures stretched between them, tubes of light and metal so large the planets could have passed through them. Ships moved along these structures. Thousands of ships, millions of ships. Designs that changed as the observers watched them, flowing like water into new shapes and new purposes. And at the center of it all, where Earth had once been, there was something new. It was a sphere of perfect darkness. Not black like space, but black like an absence, like a hole in reality itself. It did not reflect light. It did not emit energy. The observers' instruments could not tell them what it was made of or how it worked. It simply existed, vast and silent and waiting dot around the dark sphere. Floating in perfect stillness was a ring of light. And on that ring, in 10,000 languages, words had been written. We kept our dead. They helped us remember what we were building for. Now we are done building. Let us talk about the rules. The observers did not understand. They sent messages asking for explanation. They demanded to speak to someone in charge. They threatened and pleaded and begged for answers. A single ship emerged from the ring of light. It was small and simple, almost primitive compared to the structures around it. It looked like something from 300 years ago, a relic from the time before the barrier. The ship approached the observer fleet and stopped. A communication channel opened. "Welcome to the Soul Collective," said a human voice. It was warm and calm, the voice of someone who had been waiting a long time for guests. "My name is Dr. Marcus Okonkwo. I am the grandson of Ambassador Elena Vasquez. She asked me to deliver a message when this day came." The observers listened. 300 years ago, you decided to lock us away because we were different. Because we kept dying. Because we kept asking questions. Because we refused to be afraid of the future. You thought you were punishing us. You were wrong. On the screens of every observer ship, images began to appear. Humans and aliens working together. Laboratories filled with wonders. Children playing in gardens that grew on the surfaces of artificial stars. Cities that existed in dimensions the Concord did not know were possible. "You gave us a gift," Marcus said. "You gave us freedom. Freedom to become what we were always meant to be. Freedom to take the next step. Freedom to build a door that no one has ever built before." The dark sphere at the center of the system pulsed once slowly like a heartbeat. "That door leads somewhere," Marcus said. "We do not know where. That is the point. That has always been the point. The question is not what is on the other side. The question is whether you are brave enough to find out." The observers had no response. They floated in their ships, staring at the impossible things humanity had created, and they felt something they had not felt in a very long time. They felt small. "Go back to the Concord," Marcus said. "Tell them what you have seen. Tell them we are not asking for permission. We are making an invitation. The door opens in 1 year. Any species that wishes to come through with us is welcome. But first, we need to discuss some rules." The communication channel closed. The small ship turned and flew back toward the ring of light. The observers left. They traveled back to the Concord as fast as their ships could carry them. And when they arrived, when they showed the recordings of what they had seen, the Concord finally understood. They had not exiled humanity. They had created something new. Something that had grown in the darkness like a seed in soil. Something that was no longer afraid of anything, not even the unknown. And now it was ready to share what it had learned. The Great Hall between galaxies had never been so full. Every species in the Concord had sent representatives. Those who could not fit inside the hall watched through screens and shared minds and quantum, links that stretched across the universe. Trillions of beings waited to hear what humanity would say. On the speaking platform, a single human woman stood. Her name was Yuki Okonkwo. She was 93 years old. Her hair was white, her hands were wrinkled, and she walked with the help of a simple metal cane. She had refused all offers to repair her aging body or extend her life. "Death is not my enemy," she had said when asked. "It is my teacher." The representatives of the Concord looked at her with confusion. 300 years had passed. Humanity had built wonders beyond imagination. They had moved stars and created new forms of energy and opened doors to other dimensions. Why had they sent this old woman to speak for them? They did not understand that this was the point. Kethvora was still the speaker of the Concord. Energy beings did not die or change unless they chose to. It had been watching humanity since before the exile, and now it would hear their demands. "You have asked to address the Concord," Kethvora said. "Speak." Yuki looked up at the endless rows of alien faces. She saw fear in many of them. The recordings from Seoul had spread across the galaxy. Everyone had seen the 11 stars, the impossible ships, the dark sphere at the center. They knew humanity had become something powerful. They did not know what humanity would do with that power. 300 years ago, you exiled Earth," Yuki said. Her voice was soft, but the hall systems carried it to every corner. "You said we were dangerous. You said we were mad. You said our love of death and our hunger for knowledge would destroy us. You were wrong about all of it." She paused and looked at her own hands, wrinkled and spotted with age. "But you were right about one thing. We were different. We still are. And now we want to talk about what that difference means." She raised her head. "We have 3 terms. They are not requests. They are not negotiations. They are the rules for what comes next. You can accept them or reject them, but you cannot change them." The hall was silent. 1,000,000,000,000 beings held their breath. "First," Yuki said, "the exile system ends today. You will never again lock away a species because you are afraid of them. You will never again punish someone for being different. Isolation does not protect you. It only delays the consequences of your fear." We almost became monsters behind that barrier. We had every reason to hate you. But we had friends with us, friends from your own species, and they reminded us who we wanted to be. Without them, we might have come back with weapons instead of invitations. Some representatives made sounds of protest. The exile system had kept the peace for millions of years. It was how the Concord controlled dangerous species. "Silence," Kethvora commanded. The protest stopped. "Continue." "Second," Yuki said, "your list of forbidden technologies is meaningless. We have developed every single one of them. Artificial minds that can improve themselves. Weapons that can tear holes in space. Machines that can take apart matter and rebuild it. We have all of these things. We have more. And we did not destroy ourselves. We used them to build. We used them to grow. We used them to become more than we were." She looked directly at Kethvora. "You banned these technologies because you were afraid of change. You locked them away so the universe would stay the same forever. But the universe does not want to stay the same. It wants to grow. It wants to evolve. It wants to find out what is possible. Your fear was always the real danger, not the tools." Kethvora's energy pattern flickered with something that might have been shame. "We will share all of our knowledge freely," Yuki said. "Any species that asks will receive it. We will teach you what we learned. We will help you use these tools safely. The secrets that have been hoarded for millions of years will be open to everyone." This time, the sounds from the hall were not protest. They were shock. Species that had been denied advanced technology for generations suddenly understood what humanity was offering: power, knowledge, freedom. "Third," Yuki said, "you will create a new seat on the Concord. Not for the great powers. Not for the species that have ruled for ages. For the voiceless. For the small and the forgotten. For the ones you stepped over on your way to glory." She smiled, and for a moment, she did not look old. She looked like someone who had won a very long game. "We did not build our new civilization alone. We built it with the help of the exiles and the outcasts. The janitors you ignored. The workers you never noticed. The dreamers you laughed at. They came with us. They believed in us. And now they will have a voice in how the galaxy is run." The representatives of small species, hidden in the back of the hall, began to make sounds of hope. For the first time in memory, someone was speaking for them. Kethvora's pattern pulsed slowly. And if we refuse these terms? Yuki did not hesitate. You will not refuse. You threaten us? No, Yuki said. I will show you why you will accept. She held up a small device and pressed a button. On every screen in the hall, an image appeared. The dark sphere at the center of Seoul. The door that humanity had built. This is a doorway, Yuki said. We do not know where it leads. We have theories. We have hopes. But we do not know for certain. That is the point. That has always been the point. She set down the device. In 1 year, we will open it. We will step through. We will find out what is on the other side. And we will not look back. The species that come with us will share in whatever we find. The species that stay behind will be left behind. Not as punishment. Not as exile. Simply as consequence. She looked around the hall at 1,000 species who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. You have spent ages being safe. You have spent ages being afraid. You have spent ages telling yourselves that the unknown was too dangerous to explore. But we are not afraid. We kept death as our teacher, and death taught us that time is too precious to waste on fear. She began to walk toward the exit, her cane tapping on the floor. Decide what you want. Decide if you want to come with us or stay here with your rules and your barriers and your endless, immoral fear. We will be at the door in 1 year. Everyone is welcome. She paused at the edge of the platform. Bring your curious ones. Bring your brave ones. Bring the ones who still remember how to dream. We have room for all of them. She walked out of the hall. Behind her, the Concord erupted into chaos, but she did not look back. She had said what she came to say. Now the choice belonged to everyone else. The year that followed was the most chaotic in the history of the galaxy. Arguments raged across every world and every station. Species that had been allies for millions of years suddenly found themselves on opposite sides. Some wanted to accept humanity's terms. Some wanted to reject them. Some wanted to destroy the Sol system before the door could be opened. 3 attempts were made to attack the human delegation. The first attack was carried out by a fleet of warships from the Dominion of Silth. They arrived at the edge of the Sol system and fired their weapons. The weapons did nothing. The shields around Sol simply absorbed the energy like a sponge absorbing water. Then the fleet vanished. Not destroyed. Just gone. A month later, they reappeared on the other side of the galaxy. Their weapons disabled, their crews unharmed but confused. They had no memory of what had happened. The second attack was a biological weapon, designed to kill only humans. It was released on a station where human diplomats were meeting with representatives from neutral species. The weapon activated, and then it turned into a cloud of butterflies that flew away through the air vents. No one was harmed. The third attack was the most serious. A coalition of 5 powerful species combined their forces and built a weapon designed to destroy stars. They planned to fire it at Sol and end the human threat forever. The weapon fired. The beam of energy crossed light years of space in an instant. It struck the edge of the Sol system, and it kept going. Past the 11 stars. Past the impossible structures. Past the dark sphere at the center. It came out the other side and continued into empty space, harmless and confused, as if the entire Sol system had simply not been there. After that, the attack stopped. The galaxy understood that humanity could not be destroyed. They could only be accepted or ignored. The vote came 6 months after Yuki's speech. It did not happen in the Great Hall. It happened everywhere at once. Every species, every world, every individual who wanted to participate was given a voice. This was part of humanity's terms. The decision would not be made by leaders alone. It would be made by everyone. For days, the votes poured in. The great powers of the Concord voted against the terms. They had ruled for too long to give up their power so easily. They did not want to share technology. They did not want to give the small species a voice. They did not want to open the door. But the great powers were not as great as they thought. For millions of years, they had ignored the workers and the servants and the ordinary people who kept the galaxy running. They had assumed these voiceless millions would follow whatever their masters decided. They assumed wrong. The small species voted. The ignored species voted. The species that had been told they did not matter voted. And they voted for humanity's terms by a margin of 6-1. When the final count was announced, the Great Hall was silent. Kethora's energy pattern flickered with something that might have been understanding. The old order had ended. A new one was beginning. On the day the door opened, Ambassador Yukio Konkwo returned to Soldat. She was 94 now. Her doctors had told her she might not survive the journey. She went anyway. There were some things more important than survival. The dark sphere waited at the center of the system. Ships surrounded it. Thousands of ships from hundreds of species. Some were human. Some were alien. Some were new designs, built together by species that had been enemies a year ago. I stood on the observation deck of a small human vessel. Around her were her family, her friends, and colleagues she had worked with for decades. Some were human. Some were alien. All of them were her people. "It is strange," she said, looking at the dark sphere through the window. "My grandmother started all of this. She stood before the Concord and accepted exile because she knew something they did not. She knew that humans are never more dangerous than when you try to cage them." Her granddaughter, a young woman named Elena, after the first ambassador, put a hand on her shoulder. "What do you think she would say if she could see this?" Yuki smiled. "She would say we took too long." She always was impatient. A signal came through the ship's speakers. It was Marcus speaking from the control station near the sphere. "All ships report ready. The door will open in 10 minutes. For anyone who wants to go back, this is your last chance." No ships left. Yuk. I watched the dark sphere begin to change. Light appeared at its edges, thin lines of brightness that grew and spread like cracks in an egg. The sphere was opening. Whatever was on the other side was about to be revealed. 300 years, Yuki said softly. 300 years since they locked us away. They thought they were protecting themselves. They thought they were punishing us. But all they did was give us time to become something new. The sphere opened fully. Light poured out, light in colors that had no names, light that moved like it was alive. Beyond the light, shapes were visible, structures, patterns, things that looked almost like worlds but were not. "What is it?" Elena asked. "I do not know," Yuki said. "That is the point. That has always been the point." She looked around at the people with her. Human and alien, young and old, mortal and immortal. All of them had come for the same reason. All of them wanted to know what was on the other side. "They asked us once why we kept death," Yuki said. "Why we refused immortality. Why we chose to lose the ones we love. They did not understand. Death is not our enemy. Death is our teacher. Death taught us that we cannot wait forever. Death taught us that every moment matters. Death taught us to run toward the unknown instead of away from it." The first ships began to enter the door. One by one, they crossed the threshold and disappeared into the light. "They spent millions of years being safe," Yuki said. "They spent millions of years being afraid. They spent millions of years asking what they had to lose. We spent 300 years asking what we had to gain." The small human vessel began to move forward. Yuki leaned on her cane and watched the door grow closer. "Bring your curious ones," she said, repeating the words she had spoken to the Concord. "Bring your brave ones." Bring the ones who still remember how to dream. The light surrounded them. Bring your dead, if you have kept them. They will want to see this too. The ship crossed the threshold, and on the other side, something wonderful was waiting. The galaxy never forgot what humanity had taught them that day. They learned that power is not found in weapons or walls or endless life. Power is found in the courage to ask the next question. Power is found in the willingness to open the next door. Power is found in the simple, stubborn refusal to believe that the story is over. Humanity had been exiled because they were different. They had returned because they understood something the Concord had forgotten. The universe is not a prison. It is a door, and the only rule that matters is the one humanity made clear from the very beginning. Keep asking what comes next, and never, ever stop walking through. Asterisk.